Hello everyone, I hope we're all well and happy. Okay then, so in today's lesson, we've actually done most of the content for Russian government. So in the last lesson we did before half term, we're looking at opposition to Tsars and communist rulers, and you had to look, didn't you, at the reasons why like working class people, like industrial workers, were upset with the rulers, why agricultural workers were the elites, etc., etc. And then you had to think about, was opposition greater for the communist rulers or for the Tsarist rulers, etc., etc. And I can't remember whether you had to do that final table in the booklet, where it's like a big overview on the structures of government. Then there's a couple of bullet points about who was the most repressive ruler, that type of stuff. If I didn't ask you to do that, can you do it? And if I did ask you to do that, I hope you enjoyed it. Okay, no one got back to me, so I assume we're all happy with opposition then and levels of opposition. So, in terms of structures of government and ideological parts of government and opposition, we've kind of done all that area. Now, I was having a chat to Liz. She thinks we're a little bit behind where we should be if we've been in class. So we'll probably start some work on the Russian economy before September. I need to just finalise with Liz so all of you from her classes and my classes are on the exact same spot. So when we start in September, we're all on the same page, so to speak. So I'll send you some details about that sometime this week or early next week. What I would like to do though for should we do Monday? Yes, let's do next Monday. I want you to write me an essay. Okay, you've had a few weeks where you've not written an essay, so it's time you had one. And I want the question I want you to do will be, quote, Alexander III was the most oppressive, or repressive, it's the same thing, ruler of Russia between 1855 and 1964. So Alexander III was the most oppressive or repressive ruler of Russia, 1855 to 1964. Now, to think about that question, as I said before half term, questions, if you get one just about means of repression or that type of stuff, I think your paragraph themes should be on censorship, so the use of censorship, press censorship, media censorship, the use of the army for dealing with any uprisings and unhappiness within Russia itself, the police and the use of the secret police, which I would also include terror perhaps at certain points, and propaganda. So you probably only have 3 themes, not 4, but it depends how fast you can write. They are the 4 potential themes you can talk about. Now, for this question, you might disagree. So you might think, actually, no, it wasn't Alexander III, Stalin was the more repressive one. Someone else might think, no, actually, it was Alexander III. Someone else might think, no, it was Lenin. Okay, so it doesn't matter who you think is the most repressive, but you just need to be clear on your argument before you start. So if you're going to argue it wasn't Alexander III, then you need to say who or what was. So your argument might be, no, Alexander III was not the most repressive ruler of Russia in this period, it was Lenin and Stalin. You could even have 2 of them, couldn't you? Or no, it wasn't Alexander III, it was Nicholas II, or whatever. Just like the questions you did before, it's got to cover the entire period. So make sure within each paragraph you're comparing Tsarist rulers and you're comparing communist rulers. What I've also done, if you get a question a bit like this one, where it's mentioned a person in the question or an event, there's a particular way that you need to do them. So like the previous 2 paragraphs you had to do for that very general question, there was, I can't remember what it was now, but basically was more continuity than change across the period. If it mentions an event, or whatever it happens to be, there's a slightly different, it's the same way of doing it, but you just need to mention the thing which has been highlighted in the question. What I have done, I spent this morning busy tippy-tapping, I've rewritten the paragraph I wrote for that original question on ideologies, and I've actually changed it with a slightly different question about was 1905 the biggest changing point in Russian government or something, and I've explained how I've done the paragraph very slightly differently. So what I want you to do is have a look at that. I'll send it out this afternoon, and then have a think about that and how you might do it for this Alexander III question. If you want to do the structures paragraph for the previous question in that different style, for next week, then feel free. Okay, so the question I want you to do for next week is Alexander III was the most oppressive or repressive ruler of Russia, 1855-1964. I'll send out an email this afternoon with the question on. As I said, I do my themes on censorship, army, police, and propaganda, because they're all the kind of means of repression, aren't they? I suppose a slightly different way you could do that question is actually have your themes being things like industrial workers, agricultural workers, and do it that way. I think that might work. But you could talk about how each ruler repressed that particular group, couldn't you? That's a different way of doing it. I think I'd stick to my original way of doing it, to be fair. Okay, I think the sun's got to me, to be yabbiting on. So for next week, if you could do that for me. I'll also update you about coursework. So sometime this week, I'll check in on your courseworks. We're also be doing some one-to-ones as well before you finish the term. I think it's going to be done over Teams or something. I'm in some kind of meeting tomorrow with senior management about it, so I'll find out the grizzly details for you. And on Friday, I'll do a Teams meeting, if you like, with you all. You all have a chance to say hello. Okay, so any questions on that, let me know. I'll upload this a bit later on this afternoon. I'll send out the various emails. So yeah, get on with your coursework and get that essay question done for me for next week.